Teamwork isn't just nice to have in business, it's the undisputed competitive advantage. When your team members work as a unified force, your whole operation benefits through higher productivity, thriving creativity, and unstoppable momentum. Welcome to the Impactful Teamwork Podcast, where we share with you strategies and tactics to help you develop game-changing teams so that you and your business can make a real difference in the world. Hi, so welcome back everyone to Impactful Teamwork. Super excited to be with you today. My name's Julia Felton. I'm your host and guide for the next 20 minutes. And I am super excited because today I am joined by a guest, Nathan Ott. So Nathan is the CEO of the GC Index. Some of you will know from previous episodes, we've spoken about know your role in the herd. How do you contribute to the team? What are you doing? And Nathan has an amazing tool that I use in my business with my clients called the GC Index. And I thought no better way to learn all about it for you guys than from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So Nathan, welcome to us today.
Hi, Julia. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, always a pleasure speaking with you. So yeah, let's see if we can say something interesting for your audience in the next 20 minutes. Let's see how we get on.
We can always say something interesting. So Nathan, why don't you just start? Because I think this is such a fascinating story about how the GC Index evolved. Because I think for a lot of people listening today, like it did for me, when I first heard the story, I was like, oh my God, that helps explain so many things about me and the corporate world and my role and everything else. So why don't you just share a little bit about that to start with?
Yeah, obviously, if I will ramble on. Just do stop me. But it started my history of another business, a company called EG1, which is still going, which helps organisations grow, and so it's really attracting senior talent, helping that senior talent succeed, whether that's individuals, teams, or small companies. And throughout that time, you often then would sit down with a senior leader, and they would say, "We need some individuals that are going to make a difference, make a change." And you go, why? Or because they've got to grow, or they've got to technologies or new operating models, or go to new markets, whatever. They had to make a change. And so you go, okay. And so you say, describe them to me. And you'd sit there for an hour, 2 hours, going through their talent frameworks, their traditional talent frameworks. And at the end of it, they would go, just give me someone that gets it. You go, this is a complete waste of time, this stuff you spent loads of money on them. Okay, describe it to me. And they go, I know it when I see it. It's that pixie dust, that X factor. Je ne sais quoi. And it just bothered me a little bit. I'm thinking, why? What is this thing that everybody can see and things that I can see, but no one can describe? And I also spent a long time on the diversity circuit. And I've said this quite a number of times, but I got a little bit fed up with being the only man at a women's event and the only straight person at an LGBT event. And I'm the only person at a BAME or Red event. And I think there's probably a book there somewhere, alone at a diversity event. That's quite interesting. Anyway, but and I was like, can't we just see people for the impact that they make, right? And so they're the two things that are going on. And I spoke to Dr. John Mervyn Smith, my colleague, about this. And I said, we think there's a group of talent that are not being identified or looked after in an organisation. We've got high potentials, we've got future leaders, we've got traditional leaders, that sort of stuff. So we set on a piece of research and we called these individuals game changers.
Yep.
For no other reason, and we felt they were fundamentally different. So we started, I'm not going to go right through it all, but we started about 2012, 2013, a lot of research into these individuals. And we found, about 4 years later, that there was a type of individual we call game changers that were fundamentally different. The constructs are imagination, obsession. I'm not going to go through all of that sort of stuff. Anyway, so this is interesting. So there is something there. They recognize this term. So what happened was really the significant event. In 2015, we relaunched DNA of a Game Changer. People can download that. And we started talking about this on the circuit. And then it was Orange. We were at a big telco conference. And it was actually the chief information officer at the time, Orange, that said afterwards, I like this constructive imagination obsession. I like that. I know I've got these game changers. We call ourselves Orange, but we're really France Telecom. If we take this back to our HR audience back at Orange, they'll think it's elitist. What if you're not high, this game changer, high on obsession, high on imagination? Or don't really know. I haven't really thought about it. So we went back for a couple of years, studied, and we got together with UCL and Pressurization Felton and all that good stuff. And that's when the magic happened. Because what we discovered that through these two core constructs of imagination and obsession, which have been studied independently for years, never together, we found that we've got a measure of proclivity, or in simple terms, energy for impact, which is very different to personality. It's completely devoid of personality. And that got really exciting.
Yeah.
Okay. So we did some more research and then we launched in 2017. I can talk a bit more about what we are now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that, because when I first came across, and we'll put some links in the show notes for you guys so you can download these, but the DNA of a game changer, and I read that, I was like, oh my God, that describes who I was in a corporate world and why I got frustrated in a corporate world, because these game changers have this imagination and this obsession, which doesn't naturally fit in some more traditional type organizations, because it's against the status quo, so to speak. And for me, it gave me a permission ticket to go, oh my God, I'm not so different from everybody else. I've just got a skill set, and I provide that energy for impact that other people don't have. And what I love about the GC index is the fact that we're always talking about energy, because in business horsepower, we're all about how do we harness the energy of our people. And this is what the GC index does, everyone. It helps you figure out what's the energy, the proclivities, where people have enthusiasm for things, and get them people into the right roles so that they can work on them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been a journey. So obviously I get called the co-creator of the GC index. Well, I feel a bit fraudulent. I'm not particularly egotistical, so I feel a bit fraudulent because we didn't actually go out and create this. It was a journey. What does the business need? Let's study that. Then the business comes and informs us again. So that creates the model. But in 2017, we launched, and you never know if they think that your research or your baby is good looking when you launch, right? But it started to resonate. And today, what we now 7 years on, 7 years on, there's 9,000 plus companies. We've got nearly over 450 partners. We've got 900 accredited practices and so on. So without any marketing really as well, people don't know who we are. And I think that's what's been really lovely about this. We're partner-centered, so we're exclusively a partner-centered organisation. So our role is to completely support our partners and their clients. But I looked the other day, and 76% of our partners have been recommended by other partners. So there's a notion, and we've got something here, and we know we've got, which is quite wonderful.
And what a great example.
You're absolutely right.
Go on. And what a great example of collaboration that is, that all of your partners are recommending you. That really says something to how you guys operate as a business, as in a team, that everyone wants to be part of it, right?
Yeah, and they range from individual coaches to small consultancies, recruitment firms, universities, schools. We have a young people index for 13 to 18-year-olds, sports associations, huge companies, like big consultancies, and everything in between. I think it comes to your back to your point, really. Let's get to the fundamentals. We know there are some jobs that we love and other people hate. Vice versa, there are jobs that we hate and other people love, right? That's it. Let's be honest. We know that. Yeah. Now, all we're doing is just got a system that measures and maps that, so we can make decisions about that. We can make decisions as an individual, as a team, as an organization, going, this work requires this type of energy. Yeah. And I think it's clear, because energy is a broad subject. We're energy for impact. So this isn't, I'm going to go out and go and dance at a nightclub for the evening. I'm really energized by that. Or I'll meet my mates for some lunch and I'm really energized by that. Or I'll watch a school play and that energizes me. It's not that sort of energy. This is really energy for impact. What are those activities that give you energy? What are those activities that take energy away? And once you understand that, it's huge benefits for teams, for organizations, for well-being, productivity. And we don't even know where this is going to go yet, Julia, which is quite exciting. Do you know what I mean? We often talk about 95% of the ways this can be used that we don't know about yet. And it's partners such as Business Horsepower, it's partners, GC such as yourself, that push us on and drive us on. And that's really quite exciting.
Yeah. Why don't you just explain at high level? Because we talked about game changer. So just explain them to people if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, the simple way of explaining this, the GC index is built on a high level business cycle, business model. Okay. And we know in organizations, we often go, look, there's some stuff that we need to do differently. Yeah. There's some stuff that we need to make sense of. It aligns with mission, vision, whatever. It aligns it. We need to make sense. There's some stuff we have to do. Let's get done. We need to deliver this, get results. There's some stuff we need to make better. And there's some stuff that we need to involve people, make sure we're getting the best out of people, employees, stakeholders, whatever. So that's the cycle. And what the GC Index is, it's built on that sort of cycle. So for new possibilities, ideas, we call that game changer. Okay, that's the green one behind me. The making sense of stuff and plans and things, we call that strategist. Okay, so that's the blue one behind me. And then below the line, you've got more task focus. So the stuff you need to get done to deliver results, we call that implementer. People are just driven by getting stuff done and getting results. Improving stuff, we call that polisher. That's that big 10 behind me, the yellow one. And then the one in the middle with the is a playmaker, involving people. And the playmaker is quite interesting. So that's nothing to do with learned behavior or emotional intelligence or socially skilled, being politically correct, a nice person. This is a fundamental belief. If you get the relationships right, everything else will follow. And actually probably our biggest discovery, the Playmaker, because it gives us something very tangible to make quite historically soft, this data we've had around people. This is very hard data about collaboration. So that's quite exciting. You get an individual view. Everyone's a bit of these. So one to 10, everyone's a bit of these. Sometimes you're all of these. Sometimes you're only one of these or a selection. So that means something. It rolls up to teams. So we can start getting an aggregated energy of teams. It rolls through to organizations and all projects, processes, which we could talk about another day because that does blow people's minds.
Yeah. So you are there for a polisher game changer, right?
I am. And I did really well not to pick you up on how you introduced me, actually, because you introduced me as CEO.
Oh, sorry.
Which often, that's all right. But it's quite an important point, because if you think about what a traditional CEO is, particularly we want our CEOs to set direction, understand set the future, set the vision, set the direction, very strategists in our world, right? We want to make sure that they're inclusive, and we talk about servant leadership and all this good stuff, people-centered and very playmaker in our world, Now, if anyone's following, they can see behind me that I don't really have those elements, right? I don't fit into the traditional CEO box, I lead very differently, and that's why I call myself chief polisher, because I can be much more authentic. People know what to expect of me. I know what my contribution is. And before the GC Index, when I was a CEO of previous business, I was forced into that strategist playmaker bit, not me. And so this sort of gives me it's a bit of a relief, actually, because people know what to expect. And I know what my value and contribution is. And there are others that want to do that strategist playmaker bit. And so go and do it. Off you go, right? You do that bit for me. I don't need to do that. I don't got to be the perfect leader. So I call myself chief polisher, so I can be more authentic, basically.
And what I love is that, understanding this, you've hired people into your organization like Simon, who is your strategist, right? This is the power of this tool, is being able to know the right people to surround yourself with that have energy for the areas that you don't.
Huge. Huge. I mean, it came to realization to me that, because I've built businesses, but I can never really get them to scale, never really get them to be a certain, right? So I can get them to 20, 30 people, 40 people, consultancy, but it's not massive. And then I'd all start really, the work would really drain me. It'd be like a lot of people stuff, I was like, strategic stuff. And I was like, oh my God, frameworks and all this good stuff as you start getting bigger. And I hated it. And I took the GC Index to make me realize that, quite frankly. And I remember about 2018, I'm like, people love this GC Index thing. We're getting bigger, it's scaling. And I'm just getting more and more frustrated. And I was going to throw it all in the bin, give it all up. I'm like, no, you don't get it, you don't understand it. And of course, then Simon come along, and he's a strategist implementer. If people are following, it's the red and the blue one, much more pragmatic, much more strategic, likes things to make sense. And it was just a wonderful ability for me to throw my ideas down, which people don't often get. He'll make sense of them and put them into action. And you've seen how that's evolved and scaled the business over time. And it's the two working together. And we often say, if I met Simon in corporate land, he would have thought I was delusional and a pain and whatever, but just shouldn't really be here, really, because you don't understand how business works. And I would have gone, well, just boring. Do you know what I mean? And too structured and stuff. And we would have done, but now we can value each other in a very simple framework. It just works really well. Absolutely.
And I think that's the power of this, is actually that recognition of where everyone else has got that energy, what we said, for the things that we don't love to do, other people love to do them. And I know when I was
Yeah.
leading teams in the corporate world, I was like, oh, I can't give so and so this job because it's just such a bad job and I hate doing it. And then I give it to them and they love doing it. And
Love
I
it.
was depriving them of an opportunity to be
Yeah.
in their kind of zone of genius doing their brilliance just because I
Well,
didn't love
we get that a lot. If you
it. Mm,
see the evolution of the model, I mean, when we start seeing the evolution of the model and people, oh, who wants to be that implementer? You know what I mean? Oh my God, who wants to be an implementer, get stuff on? People love it. Because they'll turn around and go, oh my God, those strategists, game changers keep talking in bloody meetings all the time and nothing ever gets done. They find it frustrating. And I think it's quite interesting also to talk about Dr. John, because there's three of us, the three
mm,
main directors, and Dr. John's the co-founder. And Dr. John's much more on the game changer, strategist, polisher side. So we're always connecting and robust. But sometimes I feel sorry for Simon, who just wants to get stuff done, and we'll sit there, spend 3 hours arguing over a few words in the sentence. Do you know what I mean? Simon with that influence go, ah. But the trilogy works quite nicely as well
mm.
within that. And so Dr. John and I do spend a lot of time, big ideas, what's the possible, where do we move it on, and then just chuck it over to Simon to make sense of it and make it to a practical reality, which where we lose the energy. Do you know what I mean? We lose
Yeah.
that.
And I think that's where we see so many entrepreneurs struggle as well, because often a lot of entrepreneurs often have that more imagination and creativity, but they can't get it into a plan with the strategist type energy to make it work. So we see so many startups that don't really go anywhere because they can't make it work because they can't articulate what they've got. And I think
Yeah.
for those of you listening, just think about, we're not going to delve into all projects today, but just think about, you've got a project to do. You need to make sure you've got some game changers at the beginning of the project to come up with the ideas. But then the strategist has got to put it into a plan for them. So the implementers
Mm.
can do it and the polishers can then make it better. And then the playmakers can orchestrate all the people in it. And when you
Yeah.
understand that, it changes the dynamic immensely. Yeah, go on.
No, but it does. But also, it's also this notion that only game changers have the ideas.
Sure.
That's not how it works. Yeah, because game changers do have original ideas, right?
Yeah.
Original stuff, and doesn't mean they're any good. If you can
No.
get 1 out of 20, you're doing well, right? There's good ones. But strategists will have ideas, and their ideas will be based on, could be patterns, could be trends, market trends.
Mm-hmm.
Implementers will have ideas about how getting more results. Polishers will get ideas about through how we're making things better. Playmakers will get ideas through people and
Yeah.
how this is. So everyone, and I think that's really quite nice because historically, when you look at innovation or new ideas, it's always been new ideas. Some people love those innovation afternoons where you sit on bean bags and I don't know, have a post-it notes and coloured pens. People love them. Some people can't think of anything worse, right? Because
Yeah.
there's a load of old talk that nothing's going to happen. I think that's what you're able to do is in those sessions is show actually you're a big implementer, want to get stuff done. How are you going to contribute to this innovation?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Rather than be innovative, which is a harder sell. But you're absolutely right when it comes. Sorry, I'm digressing. But when you talk about setting up a business, yeah, we know that in history. We know that in history that it's not just one individual. It's either pairs or good people around to fill those voids. We know that,
Mm-hmm.
and all we're doing is just measuring that in a way that is quick and easy to understand, and people can be actionable very quickly. Yeah.
And I think what's so powerful about this, and we talk about it a lot, isn't it, that this is really the first data, solid data around people, because in our organizations, we measure our financial metrics really well, or we look at our KPIs and other processes, but we've not really had up to this point really any solid data around people. And this, I think, is a real game changer for organizations to have valid data on why certain things happen in the way that they do, which I think becomes really
Yeah,
powerful.
it's data that helps us make much more concrete decisions about people. It's not the only data point, right?
Sure.
So you wouldn't just use the GC index
No.
data on its own. It's clear about that. Historically, we will still have skills data. Always joke
Mhm.
around, can my CFO count? Do you know what I mean? That sort of stuff. Have they counted before? So you have experience data, which is
Yeah.
always really important. Have they delivered a project like this? Have they got the right project methodology skill and all that good
Sure.
stuff if we need them? But we've been with a lot of personality or softer data, personality, culture, behaviors, emotional intelligence, really important data, right? When it comes to
Mm.
people understanding themselves and interactions with people. But when it comes to actually having people data about who's best to deliver a project, who's best to run this team, what's the best team makeup to look at this objective in a way that is quick, etc. Understand? No. And I think that's the gap that we feel. It's a data that organizations have never had before. And yeah, I think that's why it's resonated very quickly. It complements all that other data. It isn't an either or, it just complements it nicely. Yeah.
No, and I think when we look at teamwork, is about creating an ecosystem, and this is just part of the ecosystem of data to help you create a more effective team, right? It's a data point and data information in that. So on that point, just to portal out, I know that you've shared with me previously, Nathan, about how the GC index is being used in the hot topic of diversity and inclusion, which we're talking about teams. We need all these diverse perspectives of views within your team. So just touch on that a little bit about what we're seeing there.
If you're listening in the UK, just go and Google diversity, equality and inclusion. You'll see the GC index comes up really top page, because at the heart of it, it's an equality tool in the sense that it democratizes impact. So we take the view as whether you're a Fortune, FTSE, whatever CEO, or a child in a developing country, you've got a positive impact to make. And we're going to help you understand how you're energized to make an impact. So that's our high level sort of view, if you will. And we see in our data, there's no statistical correlations between age, gender, country I most associate myself with, size of organization, that sort of stuff. So in our data, we're seeing that it's really no difference, which is quite encouraging. So it enables us to look at human beings as a whole, whether they fit in any other societal box. And so it's democratizing impact is what it's doing. So when I'm joining on the team, what is the most useful piece of data point that we've got about understanding how Nathan is going to join a team? Is it because he's male? Maybe. Right? Is it because he's 6 foot tall? I don't know. Is it because he's an introvert, which I am, socially skilled one? Is it because I'm heterosexual? Is it because I'm a certain age? Is that useful? Or is it to go, no, Nathan's a polisher game changer. This is the impact he's going to bring. Do you know what I mean? And it's what data point is most useful about delivering that project or delivering that team. Start with, this is Nathan. He's going to have a load of different ideas. He's not going to rest until we finish. He's a polisher game changer. Oh, and by the way, you're an implementer strategist. You know how to work with each other. And you might be a very different, you're female, gay, whatever, different race, religion, doesn't matter. Because we're humans at the end of the day. And I think that's the bit. I'm not saying none of the other stuff is important. Don't get me wrong. I'm very big on awareness. I'm not keen on when awareness turns into alienation, actually, but that's a different matter.
Yeah.
But if you want to have an inclusive culture, so we're going to say we're going to have an inclusive culture here, unless someone's energy for impact is genuinely valued, then I'm not sure how someone can feel included. And then if you don't value the impact that someone's bringing, and we'd move that to involvement, actually. We're moving a lot more to involving, because Julia, I can invite you down the pub, you're included. Yeah. But I don't involve you. Do you know what I mean? And so it's much more. So I think that's the bit. And unless someone's impact is truly valued, then how can they ever feel included? And I think if you Google inclusive leadership, you're going to get a myriad of responses and answers. But for me, it's like I'm on a football team, and you're in the team, but if I don't pass you and value what you bring to the team, then it's a bit of a waste of time. Do you know what I mean? So and that's where the GC index comes in.
I think that's so valuable, because we've talked a lot on this podcast about herd dynamics, and we model a lot of our premise about how to create connected, collaborative, cohesive teams based on how horses work together in the herd. And what the horses do so well is that inclusivity, that everyone is part of it and everyone has a role to play. Every horse has a role to play, and that role is valued by everyone. And so I really love what you're saying there, because there are so many times when it's almost like we've done a tick box exercise. We've invited them along, so they must feel included. But actually, like you say, you can be standing on the edge of the party and just be miserable and not feel included in it at all. So that's really interesting. So perhaps as we just draw this to a close, Nathan, have you got any, perhaps you could share with us sort of an example of an organization, and happy for you to anonymize it if you need to, that has taken the GC index and worked with this to improve the performance of teams? And what can you share with us about that?
Oh my goodness, there are plenty, and I'm not going to mention any names. So where it becomes the best is when you can start with a team, and I'll probably chuck in a few examples as we go of actual real teams. When someone comes to a consultant, often going about teams, they often go, can you make my team get on better? Can you make them communicate better? Can you make my team more resilient? Can you make sure my team's got psychological safety? Can you make sure my team is the... And I sit there and go, why? Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's all, these all feel like means to an end.
Yeah.
Okay. So with the GC index, we often want to say, let's start with the end in mind. So what is this team business objective, goal, whatever it might be? What, even simpler, what are they paid to do this year?
Yeah.
So is it to deliver a project, grow the company, scale the company, sell the company? What is the reason? And then let's work back from that, because then we can frame, I want my team to communicate better because we need to achieve this. It's a means to an end, not an end. So we'll always start there, really. And so here you have an organisation that's having a team workshop. They have 3 days out, and we get invited in for doing a 2-hour session. You think, oh, okay, that's interesting. What? Without me being really quite cynical, they might as well invited me in to juggle, tell jokes, or entertain the troops for 2 hours before they go and do other stuff. But when you ask them, say, what are you doing the other 2 days? They say, oh, we've got our 5 initiatives. We've got 5 initiatives. We're going to work them all together, and we're going to work out how we're going to told the 5 key initiatives. So why have you sorted the teams out then? Oh, we haven't. We just put them in randomly. I said, well, that's a bit strange. So, well, why don't we at the front end use the GC index to understand what is required of each of these initiatives? So what you're able to do very quickly with this group is go get your initiative, work out what is needed. So I don't know, let's say it's implement SAP upgrade, whatever. I don't know. Yeah. And you go, what's needed in that project? And they go, we need to have a big strategic view first, a very strategist. We need to then do Playmaker, more stuff, people focus, because we need to understand what the stakeholders are happy with our plan. Then we need to get some stuff going. We don't need any radical ideas as an upgrade, don't need any game changers. So we need to go strategist, Playmaker, implementer, probably go back to Playmaker again, make sure stakeholders are happy, then polish, then go on to that loop. So they've now got this project, which is, in the world high level, strategist, Playmaker, implementer, Playmaker, polisher, and round a circle.
Yeah.
So they've got that, and they can see it. They get there in 20 minutes. And then you show them their team. You show them their team data, right? And their team data is literally just a polisher, game changer team. And you think, so you've got to do all this strategist, implementer, Playmaker stuff for the next 6 months, and you're a polisher, game changer energy. How are you then going to deliver this project, and how are we going to manage that? And it's not, well, we're the wrong team, throw us out. That's not how it works. Yeah, it's no, how do we know? And historically, that's been a bit of a mess. The last upgrade was a mess because they realized that their team were a bunch of game changer strategists, and they started getting problems because things weren't implemented properly and things weren't polished, and they were all complaining, right? And they were right, we want to avert that now. How do we then use it? So it gave them a frame and a data of being able to ask the questions before, in 6 months' time, realizing they've either burnt people out, they haven't done what they're supposed to do. Yeah, people have left. Yeah, and it's another failed project. So that's an example. Does that help?
And I think that's great, because how many projects do we see where exactly what you've described happens? The project just collapses halfway through because we don't have the right people with the right energy for impact in the right roles on those teams. What I keep talking about in this podcast is how we need to make teams dynamic. It's not that these people are in the IT team, so they need to be on this project. It's who are the right people we need to bring in to do this IT project. And therefore we get organizations now where teams have to be much more fluid and dynamic. And, that provides some operational and leadership challenges for us all, but it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. But then I think it's the fastest way to get to the quickest results. And interestingly, I'm coaching a large tech company at the moment. And a lot of the things we've been talking about here, I can just hear from my coachees are the same challenges they've got, where the people they're the wrong people in the wrong roles doing the wrong things, not where their zone of genius is, where they've got energy for it, trying to deliver results. And they're really struggling.
I've got 2 others. And one example was a leadership team, strategy session team, get called in using the GC index. all of the leaders were what in our world strategist implementer or implementer strategist, right? So very pragmatic, need to know the why, need to know the tangible results. Really, for them, a strategy meeting is fantastic because they want to talk about it, get their clarity, and get some results. The CEO was a big game changer polisher. So not particularly strategic, not particularly pragmatic. And this is a space company, for want of a better word, right? Okay, basically they build things in space. They're quite a big company. And the CEO opened the strategy session with, I don't believe in strategy. Right? Okay. He said, I don't believe in strategy. Strategy is basically guessing at what we're good at, guessing what we need to do, and guessing how we're going to get there. And to the point that all of these strategies went, no, that's not what it is. That's not what it is at all. Right? Okay. Now, if he'd have said that without the GC index, right? And it's happened before, and that's rough why we were brought in, it's because all of the other directors thought he was delusional, unstructured, fanciful, unrealistic, not structured as a CEO. He thought they were not moving quick enough, a bit laggard, not seeing the possibilities, just doing the tried and tested. And so it was a conflict in personality. He's deluded, they're laggards and whatever, right? That's how it was. When we were there with the G, we go, look, this is a game changer polisher. This is what they're like. Okay. These are all strategist implementers. This is what they need. Right. Okay. So then you're in a very different conversation. So how do we get the value out of the CEO? Let's not strict him to the strategy stuff. There's plenty of people here that want to do that. He's the leader. He can approve the strategy because he's still the leader. But let's not stick him into meetings for the next 2 or 3 months all the time. Let's get him out in the market, be an ambassador, looking at new ideas. That gives him energy. And then we can build behind it so you guys are happy. So that is a very clear way of where this framework helps unearth that dysfunction within teams that's historically been managed with personality.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
I do have a diversity one if you want it. So Julia, you asked me about diversity. Let me give you an example. So here we have a construction company. Now, not renowned for being the most forward-thinking in diversity, construction companies, and they're not ahead of the curve often. Not saying all of them aren't. And you had a leadership team of 7 men, all over 50, and 1 woman who happened to be the CHRO.
Right.
Okay, not a surprise, really, in some ways, as people listen to this. Now, the CHRO was complaining that obviously all these men not listening to her, she's a woman, they're just belligerent men, they don't listen to her ideas, they don't listen to what she is, and it's a very man v woman type thing. Okay. It just so happened when we did the GC index, all the men were big implementers. The CHRO was a big strategist. Yeah?
Yep.
And then once you show this is what the men value, just get stuff done, do this, do that, hurry up, I haven't got time for your ideas. I don't care if you're a woman or not, I've not got any time for your ideas. And obviously, so she could understand where they were coming from. Oh, actually, maybe they're not just being these typical 50-year-old construction blokes. Do you know what I mean? And she's just not being this person, the female CHRO asking all these stupid questions. She actually be a strategist.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what they need. And that's what they need, this clarity. Yeah. And so very quickly, she got seen as the strategist, not the woman and not the CHRO. She was the strategist. That was the impact that she could make, regardless of any box that we want to put her in. Yeah, societal box, and regardless of her role as CHRO, okay, she's a strategist. So her role then become, I'm going to keep us focused on the business rather than in the business.
Yep.
And therefore she had a role, therefore she had a position to play, and the men valued it. Thank God. We need this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We need this stuff. And yeah, which ordinarily would have been a very personal, diversity-led conversation, turned out into a proclivity-focused business conversation. Excellent. And like these sort of stories, they all lived happily ever after.
Awesome. Nathan, thank you so much for sharing about that. And for anyone listening, if you want to find out more about the GC index, please do reach out to me. I use this as a fundamental tool to help my clients underpin the success of their teams. And I know it can make such a massive difference. Nathan shared with us such a great examples today of the impact it's had on other companies. And if you're struggling with not having a cohesive team, with people feeling disengaged, let's have a conversation, because I'm sure that working through this, we can find out what everyone's energy for impact is, and therefore how they can make a difference to your business. So thank you so much for your time, everyone, today, and we shall speak to you again soon. Okay, until next time, thank you so much. And Nathan, thank you so much for your time as well.
Thanks, Julia. Wonderful. And as always, do good, be great. See you soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Impactful Teamwork podcast. Please stay tuned for future episodes and do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on your favourite platform. Recommendations are essential for attracting new listeners. Please follow us on social media at Julia Felton and at Business Horsepower. And if there are any topics you'd like us to cover on future episodes, please do let me know. Remember, you and your team are always making an impact. What impact will you make today?